Today's subject is Sri Sarada Devi, her silent spirituality. Spirituality is essentially silent because spirituality is the peak of human spiritual evolution. So in the Vedantic tradition, there are three levels, three phases in the evolution of a spiritual seeker. First, he listens to the scriptures which contain the experiences or the doctrines taught by the great sages who had the experience. And so that's the relevance of revealed scriptures. Scriptures contain accounts of spiritual experiences of great men and women of spiritual wisdom. Then the next aspect is rational thinking, rational analysis. You apply your reason and intelligence and intellect to ponder over the meaning of the revealed scriptures in order to fully comprehend their true essence. But at the highest level, experience, one's own inner experience. It's a purely subjective affair, subjective matter. So it is called Srutya, Yuktya, Swanubhutya. Shruti means revealed scriptures, as I said. Yukti means rational analysis, application of reason, to get a better understanding of the meaning of revealed scriptures. And the third is a natural destination, the goal of all spiritual inquiry, experience. Now, and this experience is silent. If your experience can never be explained, experience can only be experienced. Now, the great teachers of the world, the great spiritual men and women, the great mystics have written, have preached, have taught, and many of their ideas are available to us in the form of books, doctrines, and philosophical ideas. But in the case of Holy Mother, Sri Sarada Devi, you find something special. In her case, she taught through the language of silence. She preached, she taught, but very often her spiritual personality was so subtle, and for that reason it is much more difficult to speak on Holy Mother than speaking on Swamiji or Sri Ramakrishna. See, speaking on Swamiji is comparatively easy because you can approach him through intellect. He has written books, his lectures are available in the form of books, his writings and letters are all available. So we can approach him through the intellect. Not that we can fully understand, but to some extent we can speak and we can write about Swamiji at a gross level, because intellect belongs to a gross level compared to experience. And it is more difficult to write or to speak about Sri Ramakrishna, because Sri Ramakrishna's method is still more subtle compared to Swamiji's method. Though his teachings are available, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and several other works are available which contain his teachings. Still, compared to Swamiji, you find Sri Ramakrishna is closer to that experience level. But with regard to Mother, Holy Mother, Sri Sarada Devi, it is very difficult to approach try to understand her teachings through intellect, through rational analysis. Because she was herself a very, very extraordinary person in a spiritual sense, and an extremely ordinary person in the ordinary empirical sense. Just think of an ordinary village woman born in a very, very obscure village in the middle of 19th century, that is 1853. And that was the time when India was not free. The country was extremely backward. And the place where she was born was extremely backward. And she was born into a family which was very orthodox, very conservative, located in an obscure village. And in her, you find a great teacher, a great spiritual leader who was the source of inspiration for tens of thousands of devotees, not only during her lifetime, but during the succeeding decades. She was the source of inspiration and a source of solace and spiritual inspiration. The calmness, the poise, the grace, the infinite compassion, the natural simplicity, and the shyness, and the practicality, the common sense, the modesty, the subtle spiritual dimension, inside but apparent ordinariness, and outside the inner purity, the holiness, and all expressing through the all-loving heart of a mother. She was the spiritual teacher of the Ramakrishna order, which the great intellect and prophet of 19th century Vivekananda founded in 1897. Sri Ramakrishna passed away in 1886, and from that time till 1920, for 34 years, she was the spiritual leader of this movement, which included hundreds of monks, well-educated monks, both from India and also abroad. And how she communicated. I can just give just one instance, the silence, the power, how the power of silence works, how it has got a transforming effect. You know, in one of the centers in South India, that's Bangalore, the Swami, the resident Swami of the center, Swami Nirmalanandaji, worked very hard to bring Holy Mother to his center, Bangalore center. Now, and she came there, and the hall was full with devotees speaking an entirely different language. You should know, India has got 16 entirely different literary traditions. And if you count the language, there should be more than 33 languages, including different dialects, plus innumerable local vernacular dialects. And these 16 different languages have their own 16 ancient literary traditions. Most of them have literary heritage running to, say, 16 or 17 centuries. Most of these languages are much more ancient than English language. Long before Chaucer wrote his first book in the so-called modern English, that in the 16th century, many of these languages have produced outstanding classics. And Holy Mother was coming from the extreme northeastern part of India, not extreme, but the eastern part of India. And she was visiting a place where people spoke an entirely different language. You can't see if somebody speaks German, an American or Englishman may be able to understand little. But there it is entirely different. The Sanskrit is the origin of many of these languages. Still, the way it is spoken by the common people makes it so obscure so that people can't understand each other. And mother was visiting this place, Bangalore, where the people spoke an entirely different language. So a number of devotees had gathered in the hall. Old men, women, and so quite a good number. And Swami Vishuddhanandaji was also one of the Swamis who was present. Now mothers looked at the huge audience, and she knew she can't speak to them, and they can't speak to her. Then mother said to Vishuddhanandaji, who they would have been very happy if I could speak to them in their language. This was translated into English by Vishuddhanandaji to the audience. And 2 or 3 prominent devotees among them, those who knew English, stood up. Oh, we are already overwhelmed. We don't require any word. Our hearts are filled with joy and bliss. This happened not only in one place, but in several places in India. Now, how does it really work? You know, when a child is born, a baby is born, the baby listens to his or her mother, and she or he, I should not be a bit clumsy, or let us say he for that matter. It means she also, please understand. The child may not understand the language that the mother speaks, but the child understands the mother. The child doesn't know the language, but child understands the mother. And mother also understands the child. So the most inexpressible, the holiest, the purest, and the most sublime relationship that can exist among human beings is the relationship between mother and her children. This is the secret of it, because the baby who is born immediately understands, recognizes his or her mother, and mother also understands the needs of the baby. That's why in ancient India there used to be a tradition. You will understand the implication of the significance of the advent of the divine in the form of universal mother, if you keep this idea in mind. Because in Judeo-Christian tradition, God is often the male archetype, and in Vedantic tradition it is Satchidananda, the existence absolute, the knowledge absolute, the bliss absolute, which is purely a transcendental mystical experience. But in monotheistic tradition of Hinduism itself, there are different aspects, different dimensions of the personal God with form. In this area, in this respect, the mother archetype is unique in popular Hindu monotheistic tradition. To understand this, we have to keep in mind the ancient Vedic social life. In ancient times, children will be sent to a hermitage, but mostly in the forest regions. Aged, learned householders will retire to a forest hermitage to lead the rest of their life in silent contemplation on God. Both the aged mother and father, both of them. And they used to teach children sent to their hermitage schools. You have to think of the times, that's about 6,000, 7,000 years back during the early Vedic period. That's about 7,000 years back. Almost 5,000 years before the Greek academies came into existence during the 6th and 7th centuries BC, in Athens, Sparta and other Greek city-states. Now, children used to be sent to these forest hermitages, and they used to spend about 12 years in these hermitage schools, and after 12 years of education, they used to be sent home. After completion of this education, when they are returning home, their instructors used to give them some instructions, a kind of convocation address. Such addresses are found in the Brihadaranyaka, Chandogya and Taittiriya Upanishads. The simplest convocation address is found in the Taittiriya Upanishad, where a teacher tells the student who has completed his education and who is about to go home and start the life of a regular householder, marrying and then looking after the parents, bringing up children, and then getting ready to play the role of an ideal son, an ideal daughter, or a responsible citizen of the country, and a responsible member of society, and so on. Multiple roles which every householder has to play. The first instruction that is given is Satyam Vada Dharmam Chara. You should speak the truth, and you should practice righteousness. But these are the spiritual, cultural, the moral ideas that householders were supposed to follow in their life. Now, coming closer to domestic life, the teachers used to give 4 important instructions. And the first instruction, the most important instruction that is given to the student who is going to become part of the social structure is Matru Devo Bhava, which means let your mother be as respectable to you as God himself. This is the literal translation, more or less. In a general way, we can say you should respect and honor your mother as much as you respect and honor God himself. In the mythological works, there are innumerable stories where when there was a contradiction, there was a conflict between serving one's mother and serving one's king or doing one's duty to the country. A great teacher always insisted that you should serve your mother and father first, and then only your other duties and responsibilities. The problem is, if you give too much importance to this aspect, you may become individualistic. But if you give much more importance to your responsibility as a citizen, then domestic life will collapse and your country may become prosperous. That's why Vivekananda in later, in some of his lectures, used to insist we have to synthesize the ideal of national morality, which again Plato insists on Republic. The ideal of national morality, which is a speciality of Western societies, and the ideal of domestic life, the sanctity of family relationship, which is the special and the unique characteristic of the Eastern civilizations. That's the only way to evolve an ideal society. Vivekananda said in some of more than once in some of his lectures. If you give importance only to the perseverance of family relationship, then you may become individualistic. But if you give importance only to your social responsibilities, national responsibilities, then you become a powerful, well-organized nation with no life at all. Family life, domestic life will collapse. Swami Vivekananda wanted a synthesis of both these merits of the Eastern and Western civilizational characteristics. So my point was this: the first instruction that is given to a child is Matru Devo Bhava. Later on, then you should respect your father, your teacher, and also the guest. It goes on with Matru Devo Bhava, Pitu Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Atithi Devo Bhava. I am not going to those details, but I want to insist on this. So the first instruction that a child, that a young man who is about to become a responsible member of the family and a responsible citizen of the society or a nation is this: you should respect, honor your mother. This is the Taittiriya Upanishad. Now, this is the eternal scriptural injunction of Hindu cultural heritage. Now, how this was practiced in social life, in domestic life, in family life? For that, another set of books were written. They called Smridis, second in importance. The most important Smriti is Manusmriti. In Manusmriti, there is a statement. That is a very interesting statement. In the there Manu says, Upadhyaya Dashacharya Acharya tu Shatampida Sagasrena Adhigam Matuku Gauravena Adirichide. This is the verse. I should translate in English. Now, you must respect, you must honor a lecturer. Upadhyaya means somebody who teaches a branch of just one branch of Vedas or philosophical system or whatever may be. Acharya is the one who teaches the whole subject. Manu says you must honor your lecturer who teaches just one branch, and you must honor the professor who teaches the whole science 10 times as much as you honor the lecturer. And then he says, you must honor your father 100 times as much as you honor a professor. And then Manu, the great lawgiver, says, you must respect your mother 1000 times as much as you honor your father. So this is the gradation of respectability, acceptability in the old Vedic tradition. So just imagine, in the gradation, the highest and maximum respect and honor was given to the mother. So in Vedic monotheistic tradition, the mother archetype was always considered to be the most sublime and most beautiful and most solid human relationship. Because it is said that there can be only one relationship which could be absolutely unselfish. That is the relation between mother and her children. So that is the importance of this background. Now, Mother, Holy Mother, she looked upon the whole humanity as her children. There was no distinction at all. You have to remember, she was the spiritual minister of this vast monastic tradition for no less than 34 years. So, innumerable incidents can be quoted to drive home the universal outlook that she always expressed. I can just refer to another interesting incident. You may have, many of you must have read about the freedom struggle, the India's independence struggle. It was a very well-known event in modern history. Now, Gandhi was its most prominent leader, and Gandhi was a great patriot. He was also a saintly man. He started a movement of boycotting Western products. Western products in those days, in the context of those days, you should understand British products. The Britishers practically exploited India commercially and economically. They deliberately destroyed the indigenous industries of India just to enrich their manufacturing units in Manchester and other places. In fact, Manchester is the result of British commercial and economic exploitation of India. India was very prosperous, highly advanced in textile, indigenous textile manufacturing during the Middle Ages. Now, that's not the subject. Now, Gandhi, as a way of protesting against the British exploitation, started this movement of boycotting all British products. So, patriotic Indians stopped wearing clothes imported from Britain, from Manchester. Even though dhotis that Indians were wearing used to be imported from Manchester, mind you. The Englishmen never wear that. That was the monopoly they established by deliberately destroying the indigenous weaving industry of India. So many patriotic Indians under Gandhi started boycotting all Western products. Now, one of Holy Mother's disciples, a Swami, was a great patriot. Many of the monks who joined Ramakrishna Mission during the early days were, in fact, they had participated in the freedom movement. So this Swami, one of Holy Mother's disciples was a patriot, and Mother asked him to get some good clothing, maybe for distribution among the devotees. And this Swami, as a true patriot, went and purchased the rough clothing that used to be manufactured by Indian weavers, the handloom products. It's called khadi, very rough, not easy to wear. And they were far inferior in quality. They were far inferior to the clothes imported from Manchester. But every patriotic Indian used to avoid the imported products and used to prefer these rough khadi clothes manufactured by ordinary weavers in cottage industrial units. So Mother said, I didn't want you to buy this. Mother perhaps didn't know that people mostly used to wear these clothes as a mark of patriotism, as a symbol of protest against the British exploitation. But for Mother, there is no distinction between Indians or British, India or Britain, not such distinction. So then the Swami said, Mother, all those good products are coming from Britain. And then he must have explained to Mother this cottage industry movement and boycotting of Western British clothes and all that. Mother didn't bother. They are also my children. So spirituality goes beyond patriotism. So we can see the attitude of Divine Mother here. Spirituality goes beyond patriotism. So that's why Holy Mother, it is said, she used to look at the full moon and used to pray, oh Mother, look, there is a strain in the moon, let there be no strain in my character. Mother used to pray to the moon, the divine principle, which gives light to the whole universe. There are other instances also. which bring out this mystic of motherliness. Holy Mother was born in a village about 60 miles from the city of Calcutta. 60 miles. And she, in her life, she must have traveled up and down Jayarampati and Dakshineshwar quite a few times. So on one occasion, when she heard that her husband, Sri Ramakrishna, was undergoing a traumatic period of spiritual ecstasies, and many people started spreading the rumor that he has developed some complications, and ordinary people could not understand the spiritual aspect of these God-intoxicated experiences. So mother was concerned. So they started, a group of devotees started from Jayarampati to Dakshineshwar. So it must have taken several days in those days to travel from Jayarampati to Dakshineshwar, distance of more than 90 kilometers, that is more than 60 miles. So as it happened, they never used to travel alone, because sometimes they had to pass through some deserted areas infested by thieves and robbers. So on one occasion, as this group of devotees, women, started traveling to Calcutta, many of them must have had a desire to take bath in the Ganga, and some of them maybe on their way to Puri. After visiting Dakshineshwar, they will visit other places, then they will move forward to Puri. Anyhow, mother also joined this group of village women who were coming to Calcutta. Now, after traveling around 10-12 miles, all of them were tired. It was evening was approaching, and they had to pass through a very dangerous spot. About 10 miles long tract of deserted fields infested by robbers and thieves. So their original plan was to cross this region, this dangerous spot, before the sunset. But then I found mother could not walk. In those days, they used to walk mostly barefoot. And she was tired. They looked back and they found that mother was still slowly limping. Then they tried to hurry her. If you walk so slowly, we won't be able to cross this place, and there will be danger, because the place that it's called Khelo Bolo, deserted place. 2 villages put together. A vast deserted plain area with trees all around. So they tried to hurry up, but mother could not walk. And then mother said, well, you go ahead, I shall join you later. So they went ahead, and after some time, it was very dark, pitch dark, and mother saw in front of her a huge figure with bushy hair, a huge tall figure. And another figure was approaching from behind. So a robber accompanied by his wife were approaching mother. Now how did mother confront this event? Just imagine, mother was a young woman, alone in a deserted place, nobody around, no houses, nothing. So this robber asked her, who are you? Where are you going? In their own rough way, mother said, Father, I am your daughter Sarada. I am on my way to Calcutta, where your son-in-law is staying. These words from mother completely transformed, had a transforming effect on the mind of the robber. It was something of a miracle. And mind you, these robbers were notorious in those regions. They had a huge Kali image, Kali temple, where they used to practice, according to tradition, they used to practice even human sacrifices. Even British police had tried to put down this cult of robbery, but they didn't succeed. That was then when mother said, "Well, I'm going to Dakshineshwar, where your son-in-law is staying. I'm your daughter." When the robber heard, I'm your daughter, he felt this his duty to protect her, to shelter her, to give shelter to her during the night. And he asked his wife, the woman who was accompanying, take her to the nearest inn, gave her food, puffed rice, peanuts and all that, and gave her shelter in her home. And next day, they accompanied mother to the nearest destination, that is Tarakeshwar, several miles away, and put her in an inn. Tarakeshwar is well known for a famous Shiva temple where people used to go and worship. And there, the other devotees, the members of the group with whom she started from Jairam Party, came to her and met her, and they continued the journey. That is how mother reached Dakshineshwar for the first time. And when she reached Dakshineshwar, just late in the evening, Sri Ramakrishna was not expecting mother to come there. He was in his own world. See, in mother's life, you find she had to face more problems than any household at any time. She had to live in the midst of her relatives who were not great spiritual seekers or spiritual aspirants. Her own parents were great devotees, but some of her brothers and other relations were not so spiritually inclined. And some of her close relations were psychologically deranged people. And then they were pestering her. She had to face innumerable problems. Different types of devotees, the huge responsibility of giving spiritual instruction to innumerable monastic and non-monastic disciples, looking after her brothers who had no one else to look after them, and who were not spiritually inclined, who used to pester her, create difficulties for her. In the midst of all that, she faced all these problems with a calmness, practicality, with a poise. But behind all this, there was the heart of all-loving mother. Now, this is how spirituality works, and spirituality transforms human beings. There is a very interesting, a graphic description of Holy Mother by a great admirer of Swami Vivekananda. She was Mrs. Betty Leggett, and she was the elder sister of Miss Josephine MacLeod. She visited India towards the end of 1912 with her daughter and son-in-law. Now, here is a letter that she wrote to Miss MacLeod on January 20th, 1913. Mrs. Betty Leggett writes about Holy Mother. She was very gentle and halting and full of reverence for him, Sri Ramakrishna. See, Sri Ramakrishna had married mother when she was between 5 and 6 years old, and Sri Ramakrishna himself was 23 years old. In those days, it was not really a marriage, it was a betrothal, that you have to remember. The child used to remain with her parents. Mother remained with her parents. So it was kind of betrothal. That was the practice in those days. But for Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Sarada Devi was the embodiment of Divine Mother. As he himself said, the mother who gave birth to him and the mother whom he was worshipping in the Dakshineswar temple is the same person who is now acting as his first disciple. In fact, Sri Ramakrishna's first disciple and spiritual companion was Holy Mother herself. Now, Mrs. Leggett continues. She was very gentle and halting and full of reverence for Sri Ramakrishna. As he talked and made many gestures of adoration whenever Mother referred to Sri Ramakrishna. I have ordered one of the Holy Mother's photographs, as it is both very excellent of her and of a beautiful woman. You have to remember a few things to fully understand and appreciate this episode. In those days, there was practically no contact between British women and Indian women. And here, Mother was born in an obscure village. She could not speak a word of English. And this lady was coming from the Western tradition. And she could see in Mother the embodiment of her own mother. When she saw and sat in front of Holy Mother, she felt that she was sitting in front of her own mother. She took my face in her hands as my own mother several times and blessed me, and we parted several times with much emotion. Christine, who had accompanied me, was always ready and tactful and put a little hesitating word in here and there. I left the sanctuary in which she sat, laden with 3 huge garlands, which I attempted to arrange upon my frock with some taste, greatly to her delight. And she also touched the flowers with a woman's enjoyment, taste and order, laughing like a child. I visited all her rooms and objects and images and pictures and thought of the similar simplicity and almost poverty of our Madonna, who must have been so like her at 50. So, a great Christian lady from Western world, brought up in Christian tradition of adoring Madonna, could find in Holy Mother an embodiment of that Madonna herself. And you find many Christian spiritual seekers who visited Sri Ramakrishna could see in him the embodiment of Jesus himself. Because spirituality is universal. And once we open our hearts to the spiritual truth, then there is no need of language, books or philosophy or doctrines to communicate. Because there is a subtle, invisible, but intensely felt line of communication between heart and heart. And that is the communication of silence, communication through silence. The Upanishad say in the Vacham Agocharam, the ultimate reality is beyond verbalization, beyond objectification, beyond intellectual knowledge or anything. So that's why this woman who was born and brought up in Christian tradition, trained to look upon Madonna as the embodiment of divine motherhood, could find the same divine motherhood in Holy Mother's presence. I visited all her rooms and objects and images and pictures and thought of the similar simplicity and almost poverty of our Madonna, who must have been so like her at 50. When I had gone all over the house, I found her at the head of the stairs, fairly radiant, again taking my face in her hands and blessing me, I had tears and thought she too had, but I could not see for my own, because her own eyes were filled with tears, teardrops. So she was not sure whether mother's eyes were also similarly full of tears. Now Swamiji looked upon mother as the ideal for modern women. Swamiji, here Swamiji is telling his own brother disciples, other disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. Swamiji told me with great emotion, our mother is a vast reservoir of spiritual energy, though outwardly calm like a deep ocean. Her advent marks the beginning of a new era in the history of India and world. The ideals lived and taught by her would not only spiritualize the efforts for the emancipation of women, but also influence and penetrate into the minds and hearts of all women of the world. Motherhood represented the highest expression of womanhood, especially in India. It is an innate instinct in every woman, the signs of which might be discovered even in a little girl. Now, a few instructions from Holy Mother will be quite relevant for us to ponder over at this time. Mother, though she was mother, she was a most uncompromising spiritual teacher. She loved everyone, but that love for her was a vehicle, an expression through which, a means through which she taught her disciples and helped them to reach the highest spiritual goal. In one context, Mother says about self-effort, my child, you have been extremely fortunate in getting this human birth. Have intense devotion to God. One must work hard. How can one achieve anything without effort? You must devote some time for prayer even in the midst of the busiest hours of the day. I used to be very busy during my days at Dakshineshwar, yet I did my prayer and meditation regularly. Continue to pray without losing your heart. Then everything will happen in time. For how many cycles did the great sages of ancient times practice austerity to realize God? And do you believe you will attain Him in a flash? So, here she stresses the importance of self-effort. Now, sometimes we may feel, well, I have very often spiritual seekers will have this problem. Well, I have meditated, have done japa, have practiced austerity for such a long time. Still, I don't get any experience. There is still a feeling of inadequacy within. Sometimes Mother used to tell them, well, this is a natural, this is very natural for every sincere seeker. At a point of time, we may feel, well, we are not making enough progress, but you should go ahead. And her disciples used to take that instruction seriously and used to continue. Many of them became outstanding monks. Sometimes some spiritual aspirants, seekers, used to go and tell Mother, well, I have done so much, still nothing happened. Means almost like, as if we are claiming, I have done so much of spiritual practice. Now God should give me something. I can't wait any further. So, when dealing with such seekers who used to claim, who used to be egotistic sometimes, Mothers had a different approach. Warning the spiritual seekers against egotistic self-sufficiency, In spiritual practices, the mother said, God is not like the fish or vegetable that you can buy him for a price. So, spiritual enlightenment is not something that we can claim on just because we have practiced some spiritual sadhanas for some time. There is no such rule that the grace of God will fall on one simply because one is practicing austerity. In olden days, the great sages practiced for thousands of years with their feet up and head down and a lighted fire burning under them. So mythological stories that my mother is referring to. Even then, only some of them received the grace of God. So mother's theory was spiritual effort is always necessary because it removes the obstacles from our path. But spiritual effort should not make us egotistic. Just as we go to a market and buy certain things for a price, we cannot ask God to give something in return for our spiritual practices. That's the idea behind. So she says, these spiritual practices will always help us to remove the obstacles that stand in the way of our life. Sister Nivedita, in one of her well-known books, At the Feet of the Master, when she writes on this subject, Sri Sarada Devi, the Holy Mother, she writes that the training the Master imparted to Holy Mother did not exclude secular matters, especially the way of conducting oneself in everyday life. So, Sister Nivedita is pointing out one particular aspect in Holy Mother's life. She was the spiritual teacher of thousands of devotees and monks. But she had a very strong common sense and a very practical approach in dealing with secular matters. So that's what is meant, what is driven home here. Sri Ramakrishna taught her also the way of rolling wheat, dressing vegetables, making bitter rolls, cooking and doing other items of domestic work. The secret of one's success in social relationships. He told her depended entirely on one's capacity to adjust one's conduct according to time, place and circumstances and the nature of people one had to deal with and their behavior. This instruction which Sri Ramakrishna taught, which Sri Ramakrishna gave to Mother, Mother used to teach her disciples. Our behavior, our conduct, our interaction with other people should be guided by a very strong sense of practicality and common sense. So Sister Nivedita writes, the secret of one's success in social relationships, Sri Ramakrishna told her, depended entirely on one's capacity to adjust one's conduct according to time, place and circumstances and the nature of people one had to deal with and their behavior. As I said earlier, for her the whole humanity was her children. And that's why she used to insist again and again, if you want peace of mind, then don't see the fault of others. Look at your own faults. This high philosophy. And along with this high spiritual, ethical, philosophical ideas, she also taught that in normal human relationships, our conduct should be guided by the highest spiritual ideal, but based on the highest practicality and highest idealism. So that's why our conduct should be according to time, place and circumstances and the type of people with whom we have to deal. All these aspects you find in mother's life and teachings. It is impossible for anyone to give a complete picture of mother's personality and her teachings in a very short span of time. So the best that we can do is to give some flashes, some glimpses. In fact, her life was greater than her teachings, because the person was far greater than any philosophy that she taught, because she was the very embodiment of everything that she taught and everything that is found in the scriptural texts. Her acceptance of a robber, Amjad, was a Muslim robber who belonged to the robbers community, and her loving affection which she showed to him was the same love and affection that she showed to the great Swami Sarada Devi, who acted as her secretary and her seva, who was one of the foremost monks among the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. He was highly revered and respected. And she treated an ordinary person who will be avoided by social elite, like Amjad, who was a robber, with the same love and affection with which she treated Swami Saradanandaji. Now, in a way, her life and teachings, and especially her interactions with people around her, was a most lively, a living commentary on the fundamental teachings of the unity of existence taught in the Advaita philosophy. Thank you. Namaskar.